This is Pure FM.
Welcome everyone back to PureFM, the Insider Interviews. I am Corey, the host of this series, and today I'm going to be interviewing upcoming artist from Darlington, Jamie Dickinson. Hi Jamie, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. How's your day been going? How's your week been going?
Good, good. Yeah, just busy getting back to work life, I suppose. What about you?
Just busy doing more of these interviews and not wanting the university work to creep up. I'm kind of in denial.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So this is a question I like to ask everyone.
Yep.
How did you first get into music? Did you have lessons at school? Were your parents quite musical? How did it all start out?
Ooh, yeah, so I definitely started at a very young age. My dad's a pianist, so I guess I kind of get it from him. I can't play piano. Well, I can play a bit, but nowhere near as good as he can. But I started singing from a young age. So I was born with a couple of no muscle tone on one side of my face, as well as a couple of other things growing up. So
Hmm.
my parents helped in a way to help combat that. Took me to a bunch of after school type classes, and one of them ended up being singing with a classical singing teacher, and that's kind of how I really started. I just like instantly clicked and fell in love with it, really.
Talk me through a little bit like what it's like being classically trained. Like what kind of music
Um,
do you sing when you're classically trained?
yeah, it's I don't really know how to describe it because it's kind of something I've just I guess grown up with, but it's like going to it feels a lot more relaxed than I think people may like subconsciously think about when they think of being classically trained. I was fortunate enough to have a very friendly teacher, and I grew up doing a lot of opera tours and musical theatre tours. So for me, it kind of felt maybe a bit more informal than maybe people would expect when they hear the term classically trained. But
Hmm.
I definitely enjoyed my time, and I think it's definitely benefited me in the long run for sure.
And would you say that a lot of your inspirations and influences in music came from their kind of recommendations? We can see from your social media, you have a show reel where it says that you are influenced by the 1950s and modern day. Would you say that they recommended that to you, or how did you come across? How were you
Yeah,
inspired by the 1950s?
yeah. Well, I think growing up and I've been exposed to a diversity and a variety of music. Yeah, such as like Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. Go back at Judy Garland. Yeah, I've had a wide. I've been exposed to a nice variety of music, and I think that's always influenced me as an artist. And that's why when you hear like little tendencies of maybe going in the 1950s with my music or a bit of soul of Motown, maybe in the way I sing. Yeah, I definitely think that's true for sure.
So how would you define your style then? You're just saying about soul and Motown. We can see from your social
I
media.
would say my style of music is electro-pop.
Yeah.
Say it's very much influenced by EDM, but I'd like to think it's quite commercial and mainstream. I think the solo Motown influence mainly comes from my voice. I think that I've been trained, obviously, as you know, classically, but also I grew up with a lot of solo Motown, listening to Stevie Wonder, the Temptations, the Drifters, and all sorts of different artists. So I think my singing is influenced by a lot of different styles and people for sure. But my music is electro pop.
So you do electro-pop and you've been classically trained and you have quite a varied musical background, but you've
Yeah,
also done a master's in songwriting.
I am
Uh,
currently doing a master's in songwriting.
you're
Yeah.
currently doing the master's. How would you say your master's has um, helped shape your view on songwriting? Like how has the master's helped you improve? Did they get you to look at subject matters of songs from a different angle, or talk to me a bit about the master's and how it's benefited you?
Yeah, sure. So I'll go a bit back first. So I did my degree with the same college. I've been doing it remotely since pretty much lockdown hit. Uh,
Okay.
and I think with my degree, I tried to learn a variety of careers within the music industry. So I focused on production, songwriting, vocals, and music business, as well as learning a bit more of the academic side of music, such as like finance and all that type of thing. Um, But I think once for me, bar singing, I'd only really just self-taught myself production and songwriting before going to Berkeley. I hadn't really had any quote unquote formal training in that. Um, so I think that was kind of my idea to kind of get as much training as I can in the music industry while doing my degree. And then with the masters, I've always loved songwriting, and I've been fortunate enough to do a variety of songwriting styles through Berkeley and various other tasks, either external or through Berkeley themselves. And I just realized doing my degree how much I loved writing songs, how much I love expressing my feelings through song, or like trying to tell a story, whether it be mine or someone else's, through a style of song, and like studying how people make songs of like country or pop or sort of Motown, however they did it. So I think taking the songwriting masters really allowed me to develop those skills and kind of just expand my horizons more of like writing songs in different genres for other people, writing for artist briefs, and they just kind of they kind of give you the. It's hard to say there's techniques and formalities when it comes to songwriting because I think songwriting process, whether it be one way for me, will probably be a different for another person. But I think they give you the techniques that you can use going forward, and how much of that you use is kind of up to your own person and your songwriting experiences after that. But yeah, hopefully that gives you a bit more of an idea of what it's like.
Yeah, and I relate to that being a film student as well, trying multiple different avenues and kind of seeing
Yeah,
what works for you. Yeah.
absolutely.
And I found him because I did media at college before coming to film for uni, and I remember one of my teachers at college being saying to the class, like, some of you don't even have to go to uni, you could just be freelancers. But now in hindsight, I'm so thankful I came to uni because like
Yeah,
you just it just opens your eyes to a lot more. And I feel like if I went straight into freelance camera work or something, I feel like I'd be making quite like rookie mistakes that I didn't realize were mistakes.
yeah,
So I get what you mean about wanting to like explore your horizons in an academic setting because sometimes they can help you discover things that you don't even know are out there.
yeah, absolutely.
And so when would you say that it was in the academic setting that you realized that electro-pop was the kind of the sound you wanted to go
Um, yeah, I think so. Before I actually went to Berkeley, as you know, my background was in opera and classical and musical theatre. So for me, I that was kind of all I really knew up until I was like an adult. But as I was like in my teen years, I went to a theatre school in London from the age of 11. That was kind of my secondary school years, so to speak. And I kind of started to enjoy pop music a bit more there. And I think as I started being a quote unquote adult in adult life, being 18 plus, I kind of realized that EDM music was something from a music standpoint and from like a way of expressing my emotion standpoint. I just absolutely like loved how epic and powerful the songs can be, as well as like making you want to dance and enjoy the moment of EDM music. So I think just as time went on, I realized more and more how powerful EDM is as a genre and how emotional it is at the same time, which is why I kind of want it to influence a lot of my pop music going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen the Avicii documentary's just come out on Netflix, hasn't it? And we kind of see the more emotional sides of EDM as well, which is really cool. And we can see from your social media that you do quite a lot of remixes of stuff. There was a few years ago, there you had a remix of was it Looking for Love? I saw on your Instagram. I thought it sounded really, really good. Would you say that being an electronic artist, remixes are pretty much the norm? Like you remix pretty much everything, or do you kind of just pick and choose your favorite things?
It's a hard question really because I think that I wouldn't say I'm the quote unquote DJ because I think a lot of DJs do like the mixing and the remixing, which I do too. I love doing that type of stuff, but I also love doing like live looping and stuff, which is something I'd like to showcase more on my social media, kind of like how Ed Sheeran does it, but a bit more on the electronic side. Um, yeah, I've always enjoyed just kind of being creative with music and just yeah, I think I do pick and choose as you've seen on my socials. I've got a remix out with Ali Gilbert, who that was one of my most popular remixes that came out. God, last year or the year before, something like that. But yeah, I feel like definitely just pick and choose and enjoy. When I hear a song, I just want to like be creative with it and just remix with it and just hopefully kind of just put a different spin on what's already usually an amazing song and piece of music. So yeah, I would say so.
Did you say that you were into, what was it, live looping? Is that what you said?
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is that like live lounge setting stuff, like acoustic? What is that?
So the best way I can describe it is, have you ever seen Ed Sheeran perform live, where he has like a loop pedal and a guitar, and he kind of plays it live and then kind of repeats it?
No, I'm laughing because I went to see Busted last year.
Oh yeah.
This is relevant. And they brought out some guy. They went, did anyone know anyone called Ed? And then they brought out this guy. And I turned to my friend who didn't know who Busted were, and I was like, I don't know who this person is. Busted they're a trio. I don't know who this fourth person is. And then he took his hat off, and it was Ed Sheeran. And I was like, now I just feel totally dumb because they said to the audience who's Ed, and then they brought on someone who was quite clearly Ed Sheeran,
Yeah.
and I just made myself look so stupid. But no, apart from like him doing one or two songs, I've never seen Ed Sheeran live.
The best. Okay, let me try and explain it then. So it's like playing all the instruments of the song live, but doing it in like so you play like a 4 bar section that can kind of loop it over time, and then playing the other sections with it, and eventually you make the whole song and you sing along to it and stuff. That's kind of what I explored at college as part of my one of my modules, and I
That's
just really
cool.
enjoy doing that process. And I think it kind of brings a unique element to my live performances and kind of on social media as well.
That's really cool. And would you say that when you do you have any kind of specific recommendations on software of anyone wanting to do the kind of things that you do, like the more e-
Yeah,
electro
I
side of the live looping?
Yeah, sure. I would say in terms if you want a live loop specifically, I'd say the best DAW is probably Ableton Live. I'm a Logic person through and through when it comes to mixing and recording, excuse me, vocals and stuff. But yeah, if you want to be more creative and like, kind of do it in a more non-linear view and kind of just experiment with samples or like live loop, I would say Ableton is definitely the best way forward for that.
So moving slightly away from that, we also saw from your social media that a year or so ago you appeared on Starstruck, an ITV show, where if I'm understanding correctly, is where you go on and you impersonate celebrities by singing their music, and you do it in groups as well, don't you?
Yeah, so it's basically they decided to do a modern take on the show Stars in Your Eyes, which is very popular, and you're exactly right. It's basically you impersonate a celebrity, you go in teams, and then it kind of works in sort of like a competition sort of standpoint, which I thought was really cool.
And tell everyone, who was it that you were impersonating?
So I was Justin Bieber. I was on that team.
You were Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
Did you do Baby Baby?
I don't think any of us could sing that with the high voice. We could try, but I don't know how good it would go. But no, we ended up doing "Sorry." That was the song we ended up doing on the show.
Ah, okay. And so how was that? How was being on Starstruck? Tell me a bit more about what it was like being
Yeah,
on TV.
it was. I still don't believe it was real sometimes.
Were you
I
starstruck?
I was, to be honest, I still am about the whole process. I don't believe it's real. Yeah, it started. So they ended up doing 2 seasons. I ended up being on the second one.
Yeah,
And but I originally applied to be on the first season. Funnily enough, as Ed Sheeran, and I went through the whole audition process, and they ended up cutting it down from 7 episodes initially for the first series to 6. So they ended up cutting that episode that I was gonna potentially be on.
right.
Um, so they were like, "Well, why don't you just come back for season two? We will probably do Ed Sheeran in season two. Let's have a look." So I ended up doing that, reapplying and going through the same process. And at the same time, I think what's kind of interesting, both, which I think is unique as well, is from our standpoint and their standpoint, you kind of almost decide together in a way. So I kind of put a couple of artists forward that I would be interested in impersonating, and they also kind of once they heard the auditions and kind of went through, they kind of had a couple of artists in mind, which is something I didn't know at the time. But as I got on the show, I realized that they'd done that as well. And it was literally which is why I know Team Ed Sheeran quite well. Like Callum and Jack, who you'll probably seen on my socials. I've done some work with him for his singles and his EP that's due out in a couple of weeks.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I ended up going through the audition process with them and was ended up being really good friends. And on the last audition before the show kind of rehearsal process started, they asked me to re-audition for Justin Bieber as well. And I was like, yeah, I'll give it a go. And lo and behold, that's ended up what I ended up going on as, which I thought was really interesting. And the whole filming process and rehearsal process was really unbelievable. I really enjoyed my time, and you do get a bit worried hearing people's bad experiences when they've been on TV shows,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And I'm not gonna lie, it did make me a bit wary at first, but I can honestly say that I had an absolutely fantastic time, and everyone I met and the crew, the judges, everyone was super lovely. So I would do it all over again if I could. It was just an amazing experience.
So by going on a show like Starstruck, what was the main goal by doing that? Was that just to kind of get yourself out there? Was that to see if like taking the TV route would work for you? What inspired you to go forward with a show like that?
Yeah, kind of both, really. I've been on TV before, but never a thing like this. Like I did a couple of like kids films and a couple of shows just through my acting career growing up. So I guess TV wasn't unknown to me completely, but I'd never really done like a music related TV show, and that's kind of something I wanted to do. Yeah, to get some more exposure and yeah, again, see if the music side of TV is kind of right for me. And yeah, I can honestly say that both of those things turned out to be true. I really enjoyed it, and I would do another show or something again if I could. Yeah, absolutely.
And you were saying about having a musical theatre background, but then also your acting career and doing a couple of like kids films and stuff. What was it that, and obviously it was probably just personal preference and what you wanted, but what was it that made you move away from the acting and musical theatre side and more into what you do now?
Yeah, I think for me as a teenager, I was kind of when I left school to go to uni, I would probably say I was 50-50 about wanting to do musical theatre versus music. I ended up going to uni and kind of choosing musical theatre. I think more because I was more accustomed to it and more because I felt more comfortable doing it and maybe seeing more of a long term future just because I hadn't really had any formal training in music. But at the same time, I kind of spoke to myself and said, look, if I have a bad experience at this college, um, I realized then that music is kind of what I want to do, or vice versa. If I have a great time, then musical theatre is probably what I want to do going forward. So I kind of put that into my own head. And once I realized that kind of I wasn't having the best of time at that college, and I would come home and express myself in music, I kind of made that transition myself and realized that music is something I wanted to do going forward. And when I was fortunate enough to go to actually a Berkeley course, which is kind of how I started with Berkeley, I it was actually by chance. I ended up going on holiday to Valencia because I'm not the type of person who likes sitting by the pool on a week. I like to go out and do things on holiday. You know,
Right.
I get sunburned from shade bathing, so for me, it's like I can't spend loads of time in the sun. So my parents kind of they wanted that type of holiday, and I wanted to go and do something. So we ended up going to Valencia, which is where Berkeley's main European campus is. And I ended up doing a summer camp there, and that's kind of how it all started with Berkeley. So I kind of made the transition through that, and also my decision from my previous uni and my thought process there as well. So
Just on the off chance, did anyone else on the summer camp end up going to college with you? Did you see anyone at college and be like, hey, I know you from summer camp?
actually, I still keep in touch with a few people. So how it worked is you got to, which I didn't know it beforehand, but obviously I found out while I was there, is they actually ended up bringing someone from the main American campus as a representative to
Yeah.
host auditions for people to get scholarships or get places in the American college. And I wasn't prepared. By any means, I was not because I just didn't expect it. People knew about this ahead of time. I didn't. I just came to have a bit of fun, do some music, and write, and meet some amazing people, which I ended up doing. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna give it a go and just kind of see what happens. You know, what's the worst that can happen? They say no, and I just carry on with life as normal.
Yeah.
And they ended up offering me a place in the campus in America, which was mind blowing at the time. I basically had to. I still had a year left on my previous degree, so I had to kind of ask if I could defer my place for a year. They agreed, but then that was the year that COVID hit.
Right.
So I was like, "Oh God, what am I gonna do?" Like I was all ready to kind of go to this college. Like, what do I do? And that was when I got introduced to the online course, which is exactly the same. You obviously don't have to travel to America. It's more convenient, which means I've been able to work and actually pay for the degree. It's been super useful doing it this way versus actually going to America. As much as I would like to go to America, but I think it's been better that it's turned out this way. If I'm
Yeah.
honest.
There's always the future. You can always go to America in the future should you want
Exactly.
to.
Well, I'm going on holiday in April, so I mean, you know, it's a win-win. And I got to actually go to America this year this past year to graduate, so that was amazing.
Okay. That's really cool. And so, your new song, "You Give Me Hope," is
Yeah.
out now. So, what is it about? What were the inspirations behind that? And tell everyone where can you find it?
in a never-ending daydream. When you fall into my arms, I can feel you holding on. We don't need nobody else, just us.
Yeah, so I've been working behind the scenes towards the back end of last year. Actually, funnily enough, through Berkeley, I got recommended to do this course by an amazing songwriter. His name's Martin Sutton. He's written with Celine Dion, Backstreet Boys, and to name a couple. And he coordinates this sort of community called the Songwriting Academy. And one of the opportunities that is presented is something called the Ultimate Artist Release Program, where they accept 15 or 16 artists and they basically take them through the whole release process. They grab a mentor that they can write the song with, they then grab a mentor that co produces the track with them, and then they take them through the marketing and the promotion and that type of thing. So that's kind of happening since August, and I got to collaborate with an amazing Canadian songwriter called Elizabeth Rodriguez, who has worked with Eminem, Gwen Stefani, Celine Dion on her latest album. It was actually so amazing, and then I got to produce with Martin himself on the track, and yeah, so that's been an amazing process in itself, and you can find it on all streaming platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Deezer, to name a few. There's probably a million more that are probably out there, but they're all under Jamie Dickinson. So
Hmm.
that's where you can find it.
Guys, if you're listening, go and check out You Give Me Hope. We want to see it in your Spotify Wrapped next year. Okay, we want Dickinson on that list of top five. Okay, so we have some questions from our listeners now to
Ooh,
ask.
okay.
If you could give any advice to anyone wanting to set up a home studio, what
Yeah.
advice would you give?
I would say do your research, but also at the same time find what's right for you. This home studio that I have now with the equipment that I have wasn't my first home studio. I tried stuff. I utilized. Was fortunate enough to have some money saved up from my job, so I've been using that to kind of upgrade, experiment, and just kind of see what's right for you. I think that's the main advice, and don't be afraid to do it. To not do it, just go ahead and do it because you'll find that you'll really benefit from it, as I have for sure.
Cool. Very good advice. Second question. You've said about that you've collaborated with artists before, and you were just talking about that. But if you could collaborate with any artist, who would it be? That's the question. So who have you not collaborated with yet, but you really want to?
Oh, I could name so many off the top of my head. If I had to pick just one, I would say Ariana Grande for sure.
Ariana
I
Grande.
her music, and so I would love to collaborate with her. That's my dream collab for sure.
Did you enjoy her in Wicked?
I did. I actually went to go see that with my partner. It would have been Friday, and do you know what? I've never been the biggest fan of Wicked the musical. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's an unpopular opinion. I know,
I mean, I
but
hadn't seen it before the movie, so
I actually can safely say I would go watch the musical now after watching the film. I really enjoyed the film. So yeah, absolutely.
just to quickly tail off and just ask another Wicked question before the next listener question, would you say that your perspective on the storyline of Wicked has changed from watching the movie? Like, do you think the movie had a bit of a different take on it from the stage play?
Yeah, from what I've heard, I would definitely say there was some sort of elements. I'm not 100% sure of the complete differences, but I'm almost certain there was some differences in the film in terms of storyline, but only from like minimal standpoints as far as I'm aware.
Cool. Next question. What is your dream festival or music venue to perform live at if you have any?
Oh my God. I'll give you one venue and then one a festival. I would say Tomorrowland for sure in terms of festival. That's like the biggest EDM festival. Or for a UK one, I would say probably Leeds or Reading or the Capital Summertime Ball. That would be cool.
Well, I still haven't been to the Capitals on a time ball. I've been really meaning to go and I never have.
I've been to the Jingle Bell Ball a few years back now, and I would say that was absolutely fantastic. So it's on my bucket list to go to the summertime one for now. I've also realised I've definitely given you more than one festival venue right now.
List as many as you want. We'll have you. I'll like ask someone to get you on Victoria's Festival, and I'll be like, "Hey, PureFM, come down."
I
Don't
would
you?
I would love to, honestly. I would love to perform at festivals and all sorts, and I love traveling. I've traveled all my life, so I'll go anywhere for a festival. I love it. In terms of venue, has to be the O2. That's like the
Okay.
biggest, or Wembley. That's like the biggest venues. I want to go for the biggest national ones if I can. That would be nice.
And here's another question. On your social media, there's a video of you telling a story about making a sound out of your mum spilling tea.
Yeah.
And about how was it the noise of her screaming that you auto-tuned or something?
Yeah. Um, yeah, so are you asking me to explain the story?
Well, the question is, what's the most weirdest or rogue thing you've ever made a sound of? But you can explain the story if you want to.
I'll explain briefly. Yeah, so I was creating the remix with my friend from Starstruck that I mentioned earlier, and I was just going through the mixing and mastering process and kind of finishing off the stages of like what sounds were included. And my mum ended up bringing me a cup of tea, and she ended up stubbing her toe, I think, on the sofa or on something. I can't remember what exactly. And she just made a noise, and I don't know what clocked in my head. I'm probably not right in the head, but what clocked in my head was to I was like, oh, that could really work well as a sample. So I ended up like getting her to try and record that in the microphone, and then I did some weird production-y stuff and made it into a perk now that you hear on the song. So I
Oh,
love
so
sampling weird and wacky stuff.
did you just said that you got her to like remake the noise? You didn't take the
Yeah.
sound of the. Okay,
No,
so
no, I wasn't recording at the time. It was literally by chance that it happened, and I was like, "I'll get the mic on quick. Let me just try and recreate it. Try and recreate how you're being paid." I know it's strange, but it ended up being a really cool sound on the track, so I quite enjoyed that. Um,
which track is that?
so it's the remix I did of Ali Gilbert's "Set Me Free." You'll hear like an "ow" in the drop, and that's her making that noise.
Oh, set me free. Oh, set me free. Oh, set me free. Oh, set me free.
Guys, go and listen to the remix of Set Me Free, and you will hear Jamie's mum.
Bit of wacky sampling of Jamie Dickinson. There you go. But yeah, safe to say I've sampled some crazy stuff in my time. I ended up making, funnily enough, for a project, I ended up making a beat out of living room sounds. So like pinging the microwave or going up a set of stairs or the creak on my door as I open and close it. I would say probably that. I would say probably either I've sampled that. That's probably the one of the weirdest things. And yeah, sounds around my house. I've probably done that as well.
Cool. Well, you know what? Make sounds whatever you can, get creative.
Yeah, people do it all the time. I watched a video with Billie Eilish and her brother Phineas, how they sampled a stop walk sign in America, or no, Australia, and that's on Bad Guy. So, you never know what inspiration can come from.
Yeah, I mean, when I was 12 and I had no tripod and I made YouTube videos, I would use the garden chair. Did you see the arm of the chair in the side of every frame? Yes.
But did it work?
Did it work?
Exactly.
Yes. Well, I look back at those videos and I think, God, that's some camera work. But at the time it felt great. And final question, what advice would you give to anyone wanting to pursue music, putting themselves out there?
That's a really good question. I would be lying if I said it wasn't nerve-wracking at first, but I would say go and do it. I've always tried to be a spokesperson of people. I'm neurodiverse. I've always been quite open about that. That's taken time to do as well, but I've always tried to be an ambassador for that. So I would say just go out and do it, and not care what other people think. I know it's easier said than done, but just be you, and people will love you for you, and that's the best advice I can give. Just go and do it, and be yourself.
That's really nice advice.
Thank you.
Guys, have you watched all the way to the end? Listen to this. This is the really
Missing out if you haven't watched to the end. You're missing out on advice.
I know, yeah, you're not. So this has been our interview with Jamie Dickinson, upcoming artist based in Darlington. We hope you have learned a lot and taken a lot away from this, and most of all enjoyed it. And we will see you next time on the next episode of the Insider Interviews. Goodbye.
Bye.
This is Pure FM.